a song for you.
You're listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I will do one episode for each song the band recorded in the studio. However, this is a fan podcast and not band endorsed. It's more of a tribute to their long history, well beyond just the hits, and my way of giving something back to a band that has given so much to me. Let's dig in! Hello and welcome to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, Season 9, Episode 2. Today we're digging into the track Might Just Take Your Life. You know, there's just something about the Burn album, the production, the recording, the new energy in the band, that's really a very special album. And a lot of people that I've talked to over the years, when you know they talk about their favorite Deep Purple album, Burn is typically in the top 3. It's usually like Machine Head, Perfect Strangers, and Burn, or In Rock, Burn, Machine Head. It's typically up there. And yeah, I get it. I mean, there's something very, very special about just the whole package of this album. And this is one of those tracks that until I heard what it was about, I enjoyed the track as it was. But then when you find out the story behind it, it does make it a little bit more interesting. And I've talked many times about how I'm not a lyrics guy, but I have to say, when you kind of look at the perspective and you get, Glenn Hughes coming into the band, he'd already come from a successful band of trapeze. So he's got some experience behind him, working with management, dealing with fans, dealing with people, I'm sure trying to direct his career and his life and that sort of thing. You get David Coverdale coming into the band, who'd had some success as an amateur vocalist. He had done some shows. He wasn't completely off the grid, but he wasn't in, a touring band, a hugely successful band. And this was a whole new world for him. So, you get these people, and I've even had it with, the minimal success that I've had in my career as a musician and even as a podcaster. I've had people, telling me how to invest my massive wealth that I've earned from being in this business, which is just laughable at best. Or, telling me, I should join this management or I should do this or that. And there are a handful of those people that I know personally that are very well-meaning and very honest and generous with that information. And there's other people that are doing it because they want to try and get in with you. They think that you are a potential meal ticket, which again, if you saw my taxes, you realize how laughable that really is. But they think that you can lead them to something, whether it's a connection or, they can ride your coattails and be your buddy. And I think of a couple things that come to mind. I think about Paulie in Rocky. I think it was really more Rocky 2 than Rocky 1, if I remember right. I could be wrong on that. It's been a while. Although I do love that series of movies. I should do a podcast on them. Yes, that's what I needed, was another podcast idea. But no, where he's like, he's trying to get in with Rocky. Let me do this for you. Let me do that for you. Let me advertise. Let me get you a robe. All this stuff that he just wants to be part of it. And he's thinking that he's going to ride Rocky's coattails. He's going to be, hey, I was there for you in the beginning, that kind of thing. And I totally get that. And that's really more what I'm talking about, because he's not doing it for Rocky's benefit. He's doing it for his own. Another one, and I just happened to see this video where I was looking for something on Instagram, and this came up in my feed. It was a video of Dave Grohl. I don't know what talk show he was on. It looked like a Saturday Night Live skit. I'd never seen the video before. But he's got this acoustic guitar, and he's being interviewed by this woman, and I didn't see what she did, but she did something and broke it, and he's all upset. He goes, "This was a gift from Tom Petty." And she goes, "Oh, I love him. Can you get me concert tickets to his next show?" I'm like, those are the people I'm talking about. While I'm sure that was a skit, that's a real thing, and I do know some people, but I don't like to take advantage of those relationships in the way of getting anything out of them. Whenever I've asked for anything, I've offered to pay for it, or just gone ahead and sent money and said, you've agreed to do this. I'm sending you this. Here's some money for your effort, or, for doing this for me or whatever. So I really just don't feel comfortable taking advantage of people. But there are people that are like, hey, you know what? That's what celebrities are for. And they just believe in just kind of sucking everything out that they possibly can, getting every little bit of marrow out of the bone. And that's just not me. I'm grateful when anybody does anything for me. It's always a nice thing, especially when they do it without the expectation of anything in return. But you just have to be careful, who really looks out for you because they care about you. They want to see you do well. They want to see you be successful and happy and have a long career, versus people that just want to take advantage and ride your coattails. And I remember specifically going to a concert at the House of Blues at Mandalay Bay, and I met one of the members of the band when they were done with their set, and they came out and they were kind of mingling through the crowd. And I was talking to one of them, and we started chatting, and I reached out to their group on Facebook because they were the ones that managed it, and was talking to them, and just very casually, without like, this isn't why I started talking to them. They were just like really cool, and I enjoyed the conversation. And at one point I had said, hey, while you guys are touring, if you've got some downtime and you want to come on the podcast, let me know. And immediately all communication stopped. And I'm like, I really felt bad, because I felt like they probably viewed me as somebody who was striking up a conversation specifically for that purpose. And that really wasn't the case. These people are out touring. They should be out promoting their stuff. They should be getting on as many things as they can, because the more you're on, the more you come up in Google, the more opportunities people have to connect with you and your music, and you never know where you can reach new fans. And people ask me, why do you put your podcast on LinkedIn? Well, it's my business. It's what I do. So why wouldn't I put that on there? And I'm also promoting the people that come on the show, or the artists that I'm talking about that week. So while it may not be a normal place to promote it, you know what? The more places you put it, the better off you are. And so, but what I get is every single week I get some podcast management company. I won't say where they are, because it's always the same country, and anybody that does this and has any posting there probably gets the same thing, because I'm sure they do like have a spider on there that does keyword searches or whatever. But they immediately, like within minutes of me posting the podcast, I really like your show. I have these services, or they won't say anything, but it's just obvious where they're from and what they do. And they're just trying to get in with you and try and sell you on their services and get you to pay for them. But the problem is they don't know how to pitch, because they aren't saying like, we've analyzed your show. Here's your demographic. Here's what you're going for. Here's, where we can help you. It's like these people on Fiverr that are like, I'll promote your book to 50,000 bloggers, or whatever their list is. But you know what, if you're a sci-fi author, you don't need to be sent to horror bloggers. Like, that's not their demo. So they throw out these big numbers and they make it look like a big deal. So anyway, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent. I apologize, but this is kind of I guess kind of a trigger topic for me, because I've experienced so much of what this song is about. And I remember when listening to a David Coverdale interview. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it. I was going to play it on the show. But he was talking about the fact that this is the thing, like, nobody cares about you until you hit a certain level of success. And then all of a sudden you have all these people putting their arm around you, kind of like the used car salesman, like oh, I'm your buddy, and I'm going to go to bat with you with management, and I'm going to fight it out so I can get you a 0.5% off on this car. And well, I'm going to see if I could talk them down on the down payment to help you out, because I'm your buddy. And then at the end, they're like, hey, if you've got any friends, like, go ahead and, manipulate them into bringing me business. And, it's just such a shystery thing to do. And it doesn't have to be that way, but that's what you get. So he was talking about this, and he was telling in the story that this is what this song is about. All these people that all of a sudden they want to tell you how to spend your money, and, they're your best buddy that's never heard of you, and, that sort of thing. So I found that very interesting. And as much as I'd always loved the song, and we'll, get into specifics as we go through the song itself, I found so much of a greater appreciation for it when I connected with the meaning of it. And not being a lyrics guy. Like, I would memorize lyrics and I would sing along to them, but it wasn't very often that I would actually think about, what is this song actually about? What am I even singing to? And I think that's kind of a common thing, but it was just something I just kind of said, okay, well, the words seem kind of cool. Whatever the story is the story, but it's fun. It's a fun song to sing. But man, that really hit home for me. So anyway, that's enough from me. Let's get into the song. Here it is, Might Just Take Your Life by Deep Purple. It is a little bit reminiscent of Woman from Tokyo. I think I can hear the main riff. This could have been a rhythm or a variation of the rhythm behind it. But I love the sound of the organ here. It's so gritty and powerful. But it's interesting that the volume of it is a little bit lower than the drums. And sometimes that's something that you do as a choice. It's kind of strategic and makes the song start off on a little bit deceptive note, and then when the full thing kicks in, it's a little more powerful. So I mean, I'm sure when they did it, it was clearly decided to do that. I don't think it's accidental, but I always found that a bit interesting that they chose to do that, because it's not very long before everything comes in. And but I love the sound, and the drums are just huge and powerful. He's hitting with a good amount of strength. So we're getting a nice snap from the drums, and yeah, it just sounds great. See, now the volume is more on par with the drums. Plus, we get the rest of the instruments coming in, getting ready for the vocal. But it's interesting because that riff actually repeats, like, what is it, 8 times? And that's kind of a lot for a Deep Purple song. You usually get 2 or 4, and then it comes in with the vocals. So that's kind of interesting. But we've got different energy in the band, different writers, a different focus. There's a lot going on during this time. And obviously that's going to affect the way that you write. Sometimes, coming off of a song like Burn, of course, they didn't know this necessarily when they were writing it, because you don't pick out your song order until you know what songs are going to be on the album. But I will say, placement wise, coming off of Burn, it's like so high energy. It's kind of nice to just warm into the next song instead of just being like, okay, that song's done, let's get to the next one, kind of thing. I mean, this isn't a Metallica album where it's just, attack, attack, attack. Like, say, coming off a Battery and going into Master of Puppets, for example. Another song that's very much written in the vein of Speed King or Place in Line, where they're doing the riff in between the vocals and kind of just, parting the seas for the vocals to cut through. Ian Paice is really energetic on this one. I like that he's not playing a straight beat. It's just kind of what he's feeling in the moment, which I never heard any other takes of this song, but I'd be curious if there's 1 or 2 others out there, just to see maybe how different he played it. But yeah, very much just active and live, and not just playing like a straight, 2/4/2/4 kind of thing. And I really like that. I think it adds a nice dynamic. It makes it feel adventurous and uncertain, because you don't really know where the song is going. It's a pretty cool technique to just kind of play open like that. You can't do it a lot. If you did it on every song, then it wouldn't be special. But I really like that usage of playing here, especially where you've got everybody else being a little bit sparse.
Old man shaking dice down on the street, trying to make a living somehow. I'm really sure about getting things sorted out. I'm getting ready right now.
One thing I don't think I've talked about a whole lot throughout all the seasons of this podcast is the use of a tambourine in Deep Purple is actually pretty amazing. It's really helping add a nice rhythm here in this last section, and I love the sound of it. They don't push it too far out in front, but it's definitely noticeable. And a tambourine, when you're using it just as an accent, like with a snare, is one thing. But when you're using it like this, it's just one of those things that helps keep the train going down the track. It's very movement oriented, kind of like if you were doing 16th notes on a hi-hat. But so here we're getting really interesting playing from Ritchie. I love the style of rhythm that he's doing here. The first half of it, he's playing a little less. He beefs it up in the second half. John Lord is the one that's filling in a good majority of the space here. I just love the combination of what they're playing. It's like they could easily be playing two different songs, or just each being in completely separate rooms, unaware of what the other one's doing, just knowing the key and, you know, the tempo, and just saying, here's what I'm going to play, and you're going to play what you're going to play, and we'll overlay it, and it'll just somehow magically work because they're so different. And I love that. And then, you know, David Coverdale, you absolutely cannot go wrong having David Coverdale sing a tune for you, because his voice is so amazing. He's singing this with almost a laid back approach, but his voice is still just strong and powerful, even when he's kind of, you know, like, hey, I just woke up and I'm going to sing the song. He's very, very laid back on this. And I love that, you know, but you could tell it's something that is affecting him. He's singing it in a way where, you know, you get that this isn't something he's just talking about, like he's feeling this. And that's something that, you know, as many songs as I've heard that man sing, I've never once said, I don't believe him, or I don't feel like he's giving this song what it needs. I can't think of a single song I've ever heard where I felt that way.
You can hold me. I have told you.
I love the way the music goes down in pitch for this. It's just perfect. We get a little flash of bass there. Bass is not very heavy in this mix, which is interesting, but just the sound of that bass cutting through right where it does is just perfect. And then, I mean, when David harmonizes his voice, or he does any kind of vocal layering, I mean, you're just putting magic on magic on magic. And there's no sound that that I could ask for, I think, that could be better than that.
Might just take your life. Might just take your life.
And of course, we're getting Glenn joining in on the vocals here, and just the smooth notes, and then where they put the vibrato at the end, it's just, I can't say enough good things about that. But the combination of David's voice and Glenn's voice it's just different magic on top of magic. They sound so good together. And it kind of bums me out in a way that they didn't do the Purple album together, or didn't do something else together where they could take advantage of this magic sound that the two of them create together. I don't know, songwriting wise, where they would be if that's something that's kind of like the idea of, you know, a fantasy sports team where you get all these great players and put them together. But if you did that in real life, it just wouldn't work. I don't know if it's something like that, but it would have been nice to see them do something besides really just the three albums that we get from them, which I shouldn't say just, because they're pretty great albums. But, you know, when you have a sound that's so amazing that you just want more of, it's kind of a bummer that they didn't, you know, at some point get back together and do something, because they both got the talent. They both had the chops to do it. They still sounded great. And I guess, you know, it's not over. It's always possible. But, you know, with David not touring anymore and all of that, I don't know how much he's working on his voice. I've heard rumors that he's working on a new Whitesnake album, which would be nice if that's the case. But I don't know. I don't know what his status is. I know he was singing some really good sounding stuff during COVID, but that was acoustic, so it's more laid back and gentle. But I just can't get enough of these two guys singing together. But we're about to hit the reset point and then go back into the next verse. Let's check it out.
I've been called by many names, and all of them have been. I can
I love that line, and even more, I love the way he sings it. Getting there ain't easy, but it sure was hard for me. Sung to absolute perfection. It sounds like I'm drooling over this song, probably because I am. I just love it. One of my favorites. And we're in real time. We're just doing the rankings on the Deep Purple podcast for Who Do We Think We Are, which is interesting because I just recorded the last episode for that yesterday. And while I'm thinking about like Burn, I'm going to have a really hard time figuring out what to put where on that album because all the songs on this are just massive hits for me. But that bass was cutting through a lot more during that last section. For me, I hadn't really noticed it as much in the previous verse, but that sounded really good. And then what John's playing behind this is just fantastic. He's really filling up the sound field. And I like that. Ian Paice is playing, fairly straightforward through some parts of the song, obviously during the verses. And he was playing it a little bit differently in the beginning, but now he's playing a little more straightforward, just some nice gentle fills, nothing too over the top, which is really good, again, coming off of Burn, to do a song like this. But between John and David, I think right now they're the real big highlights of this. But what everybody plays is important. I should point that out, if you just took the bass out and just left the organ and vocals, wouldn't be much of a song,
You can hold me. I have told you. Might just take your life. Might just take your life.
I like that they're leaving the last two passes open without vocals. I think that makes them even more important where they are instead of just repeating it, because that would get a little old. But they keep the riff going, which is kind of cool. I like that they leave it open like that. It's almost kind of like Smoke on the Water not having the last fire in the sky. I like that they left that off, and I like that they're kind of cutting back on how much they do. But in that part, You Can't Hold Me, I Have Told You, I'm not sure if Glenn is singing on that. I never thought he was, but I thought in this last one, just in the very background, there might have been a little bit of Glenn in the harmony, but I'm not positive. I never thought I heard him before. Obviously, he's in the, when they're singing the title, he's there and very prominent. And because he's so prominent in that, I don't think he's on that other part. I think that might be David just singing a harmony track. Don't know for sure, but that's what I'm hearing. And onward we go.
Every time I take a look, there's someone close behind. They never used to make a pass. The things that cross their minds. Now they tell me that it's alright, and they want to be my friend. They're riding on my back. When is it going to end?
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, Glenn singing with, really good power and passion, not doing anything too over the top, which is nice. He's singing, pretty straightforward and giving us a bit of his take on the story. But I like that. He's not doing any like screams or anything, he's just singing straight, which I like. I like the music supporting him in this section. And it's nice too to have this part, because without these little, third parts in the songs, or I guess in this case, it'd be a fourth part, the songs can get monotonous. So I like that they added this in. I don't think this song would be monotonous because as far as I'm concerned, it could be 6 or 7 minutes long of what we had already. And I'd be perfectly happy because I'm just loving the sound of it overall. But it is nice to have this as well.
You can hold me. I have told you.
I love that cymbal accent on the word hold. That was really nice. Ian Paice every once in a while will throw in something like that. We had that a little bit in Painted Horse when, the word distant boom. And when it said boom, Ian hit that sort of out of place crash cymbal. And it's a nice accent to use every once in a while. It's just one of those things that if you did it all the time, it would be monotonous. But to do it every once in a while, really, it just adds a great dynamic to a song. So for this last one to add in the last two repeats of the title makes it more powerful, and it actually flows better into the solo section than if they had just left it empty, because then we've got emptiness going into an instrumental section, and that doesn't work as well. So this is like a really good, powerful placement and use of lyrics and audio content. I think that was a brilliant choice. I'm loving this solo. I think it's interesting that we have like verse, bridge, chorus, alternate part, and then we go chorus and then into the solo when there's no more verses, because we haven't had a solo up to this point. And I think it just flows really nicely. Jon Lord just jumps in, and the motion of this song, the fluidity of it is just fantastic. And then we're getting vocals coming in underneath the solo instead of on top of it, which I think was also a great mixing choice. And they're just going back to the opening line, got more than I asked for. And I think that really sums it up, because you're thinking about the opportunity, how much fun it's going to be, maybe how you're going to have your finances under control because this should pay well, and you're going to be touring the world and meeting cool people, and playing with a band that you admire, or playing with bands that you enjoy, and just being a part of it all, and the parties and whatever is going through your head. But you never think about, oh yeah, as soon as I do this, everybody's going to come out of the woodwork and want a piece of me. Now I think we think about that more. I think we think that's great hosting. We think about it more now in terms of like the lottery, right? So many people say, well, if I won the lottery, the first thing I would do is change my phone number, and I would only give it to like 5 people or 6 people. And, my family wouldn't even know where I am, and all these things, because we know now that as soon as you have something that's tangible that people are going to want, they're going to do whatever they can to get it. And all of it, and it'll start out with oh, I'm so happy for you. And then the next call is, oh, I hope you're having a good day. Yeah, our hot water heater went out and we really don't have the money, but we'll get by. It's only January and we could probably make it through the winter. And there's going to be like sob stories and the guilting, and you got money, right? Is there any way you could help us out? And like, that's how it starts. So the idea of immediately hiding yourself now makes much more sense than it did back in 73, where you probably just didn't even think about it because there wasn't as much exposure, especially somebody like, David Coverdale, coming from being a clothes salesman, having, some success in a band, but not, nothing like this level of success, no world tours or anything like that. So it's a whole different world. And I could see it being a little bit shocking and, kind of taking away from the joy of this achievement and opportunity. I remember hearing bands talk about this newfound energy than they get when they've had a member or a situation that's kind of been holding them back or causing tension. And then when that tension's cleared, they just kind of come out on fire a lot of times. And I think about a couple instances where that's happened within Deep Purple. I think with the tension of Who Do We Think We Are being lifted, and you have 2 fresh guys in the band that are really excited and just, can't wait for every little thing that's going to happen. Can't wait till the next concert. Can't wait until we write and record and all this stuff. It isn't surprising that, Jon Lord would be reinvigorated and just on fire on this song. Of course, we got some great moments from him on Who Do We Think We Are as well. We talked about those on those episodes, but I just feel like everybody's really excited. But now that I'm thinking about it, I've talked about a few songs where I've said, I'm surprised how much Richie hangs back on this song. And this is another one of those songs. He's playing a nice rhythm. He's holding that part down really steady. John Lord's kind of taking the helm of this song musically. And I find that interesting when I think about John Lord talking about Richie as a lazy guitarist. He doesn't really like playing rhythms. And so John had to invent this style called rhythm organ. I remember several interviews hearing him say that. And now that I'm breaking down some of these songs, like even Smoke on the Water, which, we all think of as a guitar song because it opens with a guitar riff and it has a guitar solo in it. But during the song, he's very in the background and just holding that little bit of the rhythm. And he's kind of doing the same thing here. While it is an organ riff, he plays along to it, but he's not doing flourishes. He's not coming out and doing a solo or anything like that. Yet at the same time, I don't feel like the song is lacking because of it. It's almost like he knows, okay, we have enough color in the song. We have enough of a sound field. Enough of that sound field is full. I don't need to come in and add to it on this one. I like what we have. And I think that's part of the understated genius of these guys. And I don't know how they put that together. I don't know what the discussions are. If that's just, here's what I'm contributing to the song and that's the way it's going to be, work around it. You do your part, I'll do mine. And, if the song's not good, we'll talk. I don't know how they arrange that. But at the end of the day, the product that we're getting, and I have to say this could be part producer too, because Martin Birch, we do have him as producer on this. We have to consider that as well, that, he could be saying in and going, you know what, I think we've got a good full sound. I don't think we need anything else. Or maybe they recorded something and they didn't use it in the mix. We don't know. But what we do know is that at the end of the day, the song that we're being presented with sounds full. To me, at least in my ears, and I'm sure everyone has their own opinion on this, it doesn't feel like it's lacking anything. It doesn't feel empty at all. It feels very satisfying. And I think that's the word that I think describes this album for me more than anything else, is each song to me, and I mean, I realize we're on episode 2, so I'm kind of playing my hand here, but I've already said it, how much I love this album. Every song on here is perfectly satisfying to me. And maybe I'll find some things I don't like as I'm doing a more critical review, because I've really only listened to this album as what I would call a casual listener. I mean, I've certainly learned all the drum parts to every Deep Purple song up to, a certain point. But I would say probably maybe Now What? And then I wasn't performing. I hadn't been performing for a while. So I didn't, I would pay attention to the drum parts, but I wouldn't actually learn them as far as like being able to recreate them. But it's just such a satisfying experience when I listen to these songs, and I don't feel like any of them are lacking anything. But like I said, once I'm digging in as a critical listener, we'll see. And that's part of the reason I'm so excited to be doing this season, is because I want to see, maybe there's things I've taken for granted in some of these songs, and I've just kind of been like, yeah, that's great. And like it's the Burn album, and had a bit of a, it gets a pass because it's the Burn album. I don't know. We'll see. But I will say for this one, there is nothing I would change. Every moment of the song is just musical perfection to me. The vocal melodies, the harmonies, the way it's sung, dropping down to another note on the scale, everything just absolutely fantastic. And I couldn't ask for anything better. But I'm curious. Let me know what you guys think. Comment on the social media posts. You can find the show on the Facebook page or on Blue Sky is where I mainly post. I also do post on Instagram. I have a general podcast page because I've got multiple podcasts going, so it's easier to just have one. I didn't move the Uriah Heep podcast over to it because that already had its own page. And the show's pretty much done unless they record another album, in which case I will do another season. I keep in touch with Mick, but at this point, there's been no word of any additional writing or recording. I think they're just focusing on their big world tour, which is great. Hoping that they come to America before too much longer, but we'll see. Time will tell. But in the meantime, yeah, for me, this song is for sure 2 thumbs up. I would be curious if anybody has anything to say that they don't like about this song. So let me know. Anyway, Facebook group, Blue Sky. The links, as always, are in the show notes to all the places. I don't know where you guys are listening, but feel free to chime in with that. If you're listening on Spotify, if you're listening on my, if you're streaming from my website, because all the episodes are posted there with their own individual player. If you haven't been to the website yet, if you go to scotthaskin.com, click on the podcast, click on Smoke on the Podcast, because I'm very level oriented for some reason. I'm an archivist, I guess. And to be an archivist, you have to be very organized. And I like to lay things out in a very linear fashion and make it easy to find. So anyway, if you do that, each season has its own webpage, and then every song on that webpage has its own player. So if you just want to listen to the Woman from Tokyo episode, go to the Who Do We Think We Are page. There's a player that will just play Woman from Tokyo. On the main page to Smoke on the Podcast, there is a player that has the last, I think, 10 episodes on it, the most recent 10. So you can listen there. But if you're subscribed to any of your, to the show on any of your regular podcast players, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you are, feel free to chime in with that. Let me know where you're listening. I always find that interesting. It doesn't change anything I do because I don't market specifically to any of the individual channels. I just put the content out there. But hopefully you're subscribed, you're getting notifications, and people are like, hey, there's a new show on, even though the show is very consistent. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, new show until we're done. That is the goal. I'm recording typically 3 to 4 weeks ahead of time. So for me, if something does come up and there's a little bit of a delay in recording for any reason, that certainly gives me the option to still not miss an episode. It gives me a bit of a cushion, which is why I do it. I usually have multiple projects going on, and sometimes I can't record as much as I'd like. So that gives me the ability to relax a little bit and not feel like I have to hurry up and get an episode out. So that's it for today's show, guys. A little bit of a longer one, but before I go, I do want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the podcast, who's following the Facebook page, the Instagram page, the Blue Sky, all that good stuff. Thank you for everyone, especially who has shared this podcast with others. That's the thing is word of mouth is the biggest way that people find anything these days, especially if it's coming from someone they trust or someone they like or someone who has similar tastes. Hopefully you like someone that has similar tastes and you don't despise them, but have similar tastes. That might be weird unless they're just an evil person, which hopefully they're not. But anyway, thank you for all of that. And a big shout out, especially to my patrons. Thank you guys. I'm recording these shows out of order. And like I said, always about a month or so in advance. So this won't be a Monday show, but you know what? Thank you to William Rose, Corey Morissette, Nate, and Kyroon Olson. Appreciate all of you guys giving that extra effort to show how much you appreciate the show, to help me out a little bit and give back because you're enjoying it so much. Thank you guys. If you're interested in joining the Patreon, guys, the link is in the show notes because I put everything in the show notes. I even have a link to Deep Purple's website in the show notes. I have a link to the Deep Purple podcast in the show notes. It's all right there. Now, you know what my task is for you guys. Now that you've heard me talk about the song and break it down based on what I hear and feel in the moment, go listen to the song uninterrupted and see what you think. Enjoy it, guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, a tour of the entire Deep Purple studio recordings. Please remember to give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Leave a comment and tell your friends. I also have a Patreon set up if you'd like to support the show. You can also write to me at smokeonthepodcast@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode and thanks for listening.